statistical, mathematical fact
never has been down.
has broken every single record. There is no asset that has come close.
It's the only thing in the industry that was not touched, that was not hacked, and it never fails doing what it promised in 2009. It's never
What's
failed.
the best performing asset the world has ever seen? And you'll find out that it's Bitcoin.
Good morning. Good morning, Bitcoiners. Good morning, good afternoon, maybe even good evening, depending upon where you are in the world. I know it's a Sunday. It's a late Sunday morning for me where I am in the world right now. And I know this might not be the most opportune time to do a Twitter Spaces, or what I guess we should start calling X Spaces. But I didn't forget to press the record button this time. So for those of you who can't join me live during this discussion, which I'm assuming is going to be somewhat brief today, you'll at least be able to catch this sometime in the future at your leisure. But I want to thank everyone for all of your support here on this growing X's space. A lot of people don't realize that I do have other social media outlets, which for the most part, I dedicate almost exclusively to the trading side of my life. I've been a professional trader from the year since 1986. I'm one of the pioneers in that space, actually, but got bitten really hard by the Bitcoin bug. Sometime actually in late 20, I keep saying 19, but I got bitten by the Bitcoin bug to a certain extent. My first bite sort of came in the year 2019. I did not make my plunge into Bitcoin until March of 2020. It was a very opportune time. I was very fortunate to get the opportunity of the mini crash that occurred in March of 2020. And that was my foray into Bitcoin for the very first time. But then I got bit by the Bitcoin bug, as it were, far deeper and harder several months after that. I will have to sort of admit that even when I went into Bitcoin on March 12th and 13th of 2020, I actually brought 6,000 plus traders with me into Bitcoin at the same time on the same days. So we hit Bitcoin really hard, 6,000 plus of us. We were planning to actually get into Bitcoin on a technical break above. At the time, was that we were looking for a technical break above $10,000 a coin, but we instead got the plunge starting on March 12th that really broke Bitcoin down. I believe that plunge was something close to a 50% drop in a matter of 2 days. And we decided as a group to hit the plunge up instead of waiting for the breakout. And so we got into Bitcoin in a very, very hard, substantial way. And at that particular point, it was still a trade, albeit a special medium-term trade. It was not until several months after that that an epiphany occurred. As I studied the asset more, as I went deeper and deeper down the proverbial rabbit hole, as it were, it suddenly dawned on me, oh my God, this is something different. This is not just a trade. This is not even just an investment. This is an entirely new species. This is something that the world has never seen before. And these things sort of hit me all at once. It came almost in a flash, a moment, if you will. And I'll have to say this, my fellow Bitcoiners, my traders, anyone who's here, I'll have to say this, that my career in the financial space, my career, my 43 years of trading financial markets, my 37 years of doing it professionally, that actually stood in the way of my understanding of Bitcoin before 2020, the year 2020. I was exposed to Bitcoin, but I poo-pooed it as an asset. I poo-pooed it as a mature market. I poo-pooed it as something to be taken seriously. And that poo-pooing of this very special new species called Bitcoin, that poo-pooing came as a result of my history in financial markets, because this new species didn't fit my my template, as you will, of something that's legitimate. I was judging a brand new system from the traditional system, which is the mistake that virtually every professional financial person in the field makes initially. And so, because I had such a long, thorough, and somewhat successful career in the financial space, that career itself was the block for me. That career itself stood in the way of my initial understanding of Bitcoin. But at the same time that it was an impediment for me understanding how special this thing was, it also helped me grab it and understand it as quickly as I did. So that's the strange dichotomy with being in the financial space on the professional side, being an institutional trader, being a hedge fund manager, and all of those things. Those things held me back. But at the same time, paradoxically, those things helped me get it a lot faster than I think your traditional person or your regular person can get it if they have no exposure to things that touch upon finance and economics. And so it was an impediment, but it was also, my background was also a blessing in disguise as well. And when I got it, I really, really got it, traders, Bitcoiners. I really got it. Now, that is not to say by any stretch of the imagination that I am a very mature Bitcoiner. I still consider myself a baby in the space. I am learning every day, but I will tell you that this has affected my life in a way like nothing else has before. And as I wrote the other day in a tweet here, telling you the story about how my mother was a librarian that required that I stay in the library until she got off after school every single day of my life, every single school day of my life, so that my life became basically entrenched in reading and reading and reading. I believe that almost everything that I've experienced in my life has sort of led me to this moment, this period of my life today. Everything I've read, everything I've studied, everything I've experienced, and everything that I've gone through in my career. Now, when I look back on that, it appears as if all of those things were almost in some magical way designed to help me be where I am today and understand Bitcoin the way I understand Bitcoin today. And it's miraculous in that particular way for me. And I'm not quite sure how many people get affected this way, but I feel like I've been infected. I feel like I've contracted a virus that is here to stay, but a good one in this case. And so it has had a profound effect on my life. It's given me, in a sense, a new lease on my life. And it is that deeper understanding of what this is that has made it so. Now, in my opinion, I will say this. When I run across individuals who are actually Bitcoiners who have not been affected to the level that I've been affected, one of the common things that I actually see in them is that they look at Bitcoin strictly through the eyes of technology. They are technical people. They appreciate Bitcoin's technical superiority in certain areas. And that's where it ends. It ends with just it being another superb technology. And this, in my opinion, is very short-sighted because Bitcoin is far and beyond technology. Bitcoin is freedom. It is freedom from a system that is designed to enslave us to a money and a measurement of our value that is created by another man. And so when you just see Bitcoin as another piece of technology, it's very easy to start looking at other pieces of technology and start to sort of group everything together. So you become a shitcoiner very easily when your viewpoint is just from the vantage point of technology. And I think that's very short-sighted. But what I wanted to really touch upon very briefly here with you today, as I've listed in the title here, is that I wanted to talk very briefly about the utility of Bitcoin and what I consider to be, this is my consideration, what I consider to be Bitcoin's number one use case. Now, I am constantly fielding remarks and comments here from those who have not quite been bitten by Bitcoin, or those who are haters of Bitcoin, or those who are skeptical of Bitcoin. I'm constantly fielding comments from them about Bitcoin's utility. And one of the most common things I receive is that, well, other things have a far higher utility than Bitcoin, and there's far more use cases for this coin and this opportunity and this technology than Bitcoin. Bitcoin has very low utility. Now, what these individuals typically miss is the fact they miss several things, in my opinion. Number one, you don't want high utility if you want high value in a thing. The higher, what these people don't understand is that the higher the utilitarian case of an item, the more it will be commoditized in the future. And if you go back and think about all the things that have high utility, they have low unit price, and their unit prices trend towards zero. So if we go ridiculously to the most utilitarian thing on the planet, it's air. Air is free, yet its utility is extraordinarily important to us. Air is necessary for every single human being, every single living thing on the planet to live and survive. Yet the thing that has the highest level of utility is absolutely free. If we go to the next thing, if we go to something like water, we can live without food for months, but we can't live without water for days. Water has a very high utility, and if we get ridiculous with it while water is free, let's take the free element out of water. Despite the fact that water has a very high utility rate, you can buy a bottle of water for $1 or less today. High utility, low unit price. If we go to the very next thing that has a high utility, I would say that it's copper. Copper is used in virtually every single thing on Earth, every single piece of technology, every computer, every cell phone, every car, every house, plumbing, the whole thing in transistors. Copper is everywhere, yet it trades at what? $4 a unit price? Okay. Now, silver would be next. Now, silver has, yes, less utility than copper. It still has a high utility. Silver is used in dentistry. Silver is used in conductors, semiconductors, electronics. Silver is used in cars. Silver has a very high utility as well, but it's not quite as high as copper. Copper is the king of utility. Silver is the next king of utility, or the assistant king of utility. But yet its unit price is $26. So from $4, higher utility, copper has higher utility, $4. Silver has less utility, $25. You see how the less utilized an item, the higher the unit price will be. And then we can go to gold as next, right? So gold has utility as well. We know that gold has utility, but it is far less utility than silver. When it comes to what's used more in life, what's used more on a daily basis, what's used more in things that we make and produce, silver is the king when compared to gold as far as a utilitarian case. It has gold has a lower utility. It is used, it does have utility, however, it's used for jewelry. It's used in certain electronics. It's used to a certain extent still in dentistry, but its utility is extraordinarily low compared to silver, but its unit price is 2000 is 1900, 1800, whatever it is right now. So think about this. As we start declining in utility, the unit price climbs. If you increase, it's like a seesaw, right? If you increase utility, you drop unit price. If you decrease utility, all things being equal, you increase unit price. Now, here is the thing. Bitcoin has less utility than gold. Gold has less utility than silver. Silver has less utility than copper. Copper has less utility than water. Water has less utility than air. But Bitcoin, having the least utility of all, has the highest unit price, and it's going higher. Now, you can't ignore this fact. And there's something beautiful that comes through the understanding of utility, unit price, and overall value. There's something beautiful that's born from this understanding. Now, get this. What we're really talking about here is the fact that all things that were considered money before had a common flaw. Listen to me, traders. Listen to me, Bitcoiners. This is the beautiful thing that is born from this understanding. Every single money that has been experimented with by the human race in the past has had a common flaw. That common flaw is that it's had a utility case and served as money. I'm going to repeat that it is so important. I need to repeat this to you. We have experimented as a human species. We've experimented with a variety of forms of money, a variety of forms of money. And each form got better and better, but every single form up until now has had a common flaw. That flaw, that problem, that fly in the ointment, that number one thing that has undone the efficacy of every single money in the past is the fact that it was a shared money. It served as money, and as well as it served as utility for other things. It's the utility for other things that made all the former forms of money impure, incomplete, and ineffective over time. Traders, Bitcoiners, you don't want your money to have a part-time job. You want your money to be money, and that's it. Not money plus jewelry, not money plus electronics, not money plus this, not money plus that. You don't want your money moonlighting on you. Your money is supposed to be pure. Your money is supposed to be one single thing. Money. It's not supposed to be money. It's not supposed to be money and money for a certain part of its time during the day, and then it checks out like a freaking employee and says, I'm going to stop being your money at 5 o'clock and I'm going to go do my other part-time jobs. I'll be back in the morning and be your money in the morning. And that's what silver was. Silver's price will always be held down because its price, its value is not just as money. It's a money too. It was money for thousands of years. Silver's 9,000-year-old money, but its price won't rise because it's dictated by its part-time jobs outside of money. It's dictated by the supply and demand dynamics of things that are in semiconductors, that are things that are in cars and electronics and cell phones. Those other things that silver is responsible for actually influence the value of silver as money. But if you remove the utilitarian part out of money and leave it as a pure premium, monetary premium that does not do backflips and cartwheels as well as try to be money. It does not try to do acrobatics outside of being money. It does not try to do anything else except store your value. That's what the job of a money is, to store your value for the future. That's the essence of what money is. It is only when your money doesn't have another part-time function to do that it is pure, unadulterated money. And until Bitcoin was discovered, until digital scarcity was discovered, because I truly believe that Bitcoin is way beyond a technology. Technology is built on top of digital scarcity, but digital scarcity was a discovery, traders and Bitcoiners. Digital scarcity was not something that was created by a human being. It is something that existed from the beginning of time that was simply discovered by putting certain things together. This discovery is no different from the discovery of atoms that were imperceptible to the human eye until someone put a certain number of contraptions and items together to form a microscope that gave us the ability to discover atoms. It wasn't that atoms weren't there. It wasn't that the microscope invented atoms. Someone put certain things together to create something that gave us the ability to discover atoms. And so Satoshi Nakamoto put certain things together, proof of work, SHA-256, and certain things together to this. And what was discovered was digital scarcity. And technology is built on top of the discovery. Like fire is the discovery, and the use cases, the technological use cases of that discovery, fire, can go from there. So when you look at Bitcoin, when you look at Bitcoin only as a technology, you miss its marvel. You miss the miracle. The miracle is that something that has existed since the beginning of time was discovered here. And there's only a small handful of these types of discoveries throughout the human experience. Fire, electricity, so forth and so on. And so to get back to the original theme here of utility, the value of utility versus a pure monetary premium is missed by most of the Bitcoin haters, most of the skeptics that are looking for a use case. They're looking for utility, which is not what you do when it comes to a money. You don't want your money moonlighting on you. You want it to be pure and do one thing. And one of the ways that I do my best to communicate this point to my traders and my people is I encourage them to think of a massive vault. Think of a vault in which you are going to store your entire life's work. your value, your family's future, your future, your family's future, your legacy, your value that you don't need to use right now, where are you going to put that? Where are you going to put the value that you don't need this instant, this moment right now? Where does that go? That has been one of the most important questions over the last several centuries. Where do I store what I don't need right now? This is my value. I spent my life. I spent my energy. I spent my time. I spent my life for this value. This value today represents my life. That I've given my life, and in exchange, I've received this value, but I don't need it right now. Where do I stick it? Where do I store it? What do I stuff it into? And this is one of the most important questions of the day. Where do you store yourself? Where do you store your future self? Because your value that you don't need today is your future self. Where do I put that? It needs to be protected. And where do I put it where someone can't steal it away? Someone can't take it. Someone can't debase it. Someone has no control over the life that I've given for this value. So I encourage my people to look at Bitcoin as this security vault, where you can store yourself, your future self. You can store your value. You can store what you've worked for, what you've slaved for, what you've given up your time for, and you can be secure that no one is going to ever get their greasy little fingers or hands on it. No one can take it. No one can confiscate it. No one can debase it. No one can make it less. No one can make it less value. It's always the same or more. And so now, with this important vault that no one can crack, no one can get to, that has one sole responsibility to protect me, do you want it to have a part-time job? Do you want it to say, okay, well, wait a minute, I'm gonna protect you up until 9 p.m. tonight. But at 9 p.m., I play the saxophone for a jazz club down the street. So I'm gonna stop protecting you and your future and your family's future at 10 p.m. I usually finish late around 4 a.m. I take a 2-hour nap after that, and I'll come back to start protecting you, your life, your family's life, and their future in the morning. Are you kidding me? I don't want my vault doing anything but being a vault. I don't want it to have a utilitarian case. I don't want it to have another use case outside of being a freaking vault. And everyone who's a Bitcoin skeptic says, well, Bitcoin's boring. I want it to be boring. What the frick? What are you talking about? It's supposed to be boring. It's supposed to not move. It's supposed to be slow. It's supposed to be stationary. It's not supposed to have flashing lights. It's not supposed to be an acrobat. An acrobat is not supposed to do back flips and front flips and cartwheels, and it's not supposed to brag about being a jack of all trades. It's supposed to be a freaking boring vault that no one can get into. What does a vault do? Nothing except stay still and be absolutely secure. And this is what's missed by those who dare not to investigate. And let me tell you this, my traders and Bitcoiners. This is the number one thing the world needs today. I'm going to repeat that. What I've explained what Bitcoin is, a vault to store your future self into, to store your value, to store what you've given your life up for. You gave your life up for something. If you worked 40 hours last week and in exchange for that, you got something in exchange for the life you gave someone else. You gave up your life for 40 hours to something else. And in exchange for giving up your life, you received something. This something is you. This something represents your life, your time, your energy, your very essence as a human being. Where you put it is the problem that the world has today. Because up until Bitcoin, there has never been a legitimate place to store myself. Every place that was offered to us prior to Bitcoin was to trust someone else with myself, with my future, with my value, with the very essence of who I am, with my time, to trust a banker, to trust an investment advisor, to trust another company with it, to trust a stock, to trust a this, to trust a that. It was all based on giving myself what I've sacrificed myself for over to someone else. And this has been the downfall forever, not having a place that guarantees the solidity of what you've sacrificed for. Store value. That is where Bitcoin is in its multi-step journey to becoming a full-fledged money. You don't become a full-fledged money instantly. It takes time, and every money that is going to be a secure money, a real money, a sound money, must go through the 4 steps of becoming a full-fledged money. The first step being a collectible. Bitcoin was a collectible, something that basically computer geeks and weird libertarians sort of sloshed around between each other. It was a cute little collectible. And once enough people start collecting it, you have to get to a place of some version of critical mass with those who collect it. It naturally starts to morph into a store of value as more and more people realize that there's enough collectors of this thing that gives me confidence that I can always dish it off to someone. So I'm willing to hold it for a bit, and it starts to morph into a store of value. And it is this use case, a store of value, which in a word is a vault in which you store your value. This is what most of the world needs more today than anything else, because their value is and has always been stolen from them, inflated away through monetary policy, through inflation. It's been confiscated, taken. And so for the first time, we have an item, a vault, if you will, that is not controlled by any human being, but is available to every human being. We have a vault that can't be cracked, can't be hacked, can't be accessed. We have a way of storing our value in our own words. Think of how powerful that is, traders. There used to be this saying throughout life, my word is my bond. Well, now your word is your value, your bond. In the beginning was the word, right? So Bitcoin is literally your word today. That is the vault. And your word can't be taken. Your word can't be stolen. Your word can't be confiscated. How do you confiscate a word? How do you hack a word? How do you hack 12 words in your mind? How is that possible? How do you take 12 words from someone. I'm not saying that your 12 words lying around can't be stolen. I understand that. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about the fact that, okay, if I'm careful enough and I don't allow anyone to steal my 12 words, how is it possible for your value to be taken from you unless you give it up? Oh, yes, someone can hold a gun to your head and you can decide that the risk is too high. I'm going to give up my words. That's not confiscation. That's your decision. Because you can also decide, I'm going to just die then. I'm going to die with my words. So that still comes down to choice. We've never had an ability to store and carry our own value and wealth and our future selves with us wherever we go. We've never had a store of value that was safe and protected from all the bad actors in life. We've never had that ever in the history of the world. And history is filled with incident after incident after incident of people's value being stolen from them, taken from them, raped, violated. How is it, ladies and gentlemen, how is it possible that the richest countries in the world are the poorest? How is that possible without raping, without violation, without hacking, without taking by force, without war, without murder? How is it possible that the countries that are the richest in resources on the planet, riches in gold and diamonds and oil and so forth and so on, how is it that on average, the richest countries in the world are the poorest? That can only happen with violence. That can only happen with taking by force, coercion, war, murder. That's the only way that can happen. Throughout history, history has proven that the lack or inability to protect one's value has been the number one downfall of societies for time immemorial. And so and Bitcoin has come to solve that. It has come to solve a societal issue that dates back thousands upon thousands of years. And when you look at just Bitcoin, just from the vantage point of another piece of technology that some dude somewhere made, you clip its wings, my friend. You greatly diminish how beautiful and magical this thing is. When you just look for some utilitarian use case, you're judging something that is brand new to our reality from what you've always known. And that's a critical error. I believe Jeff Booth is very known for pounding the table on the fact that you can't judge a new system from an old system. And at every major breakthrough in human history, there's always been this great lack of understanding of the significance of this breakthrough by the majority, because they're always judging from what they know and translating that to what is entirely new. And there's always just the few that somehow, some way, and for some reason get it and have the vision. But my main point here today is to not get confused with utility over pure monetary value. Bitcoin's number one use case is to secure your future, to secure your future self, to store what you have slaved for, instead of handing over what you've slaved for someone or something that is going to constantly clip you little by little, and sometimes not so little by little, until it's gone. And that is its number one use case. It's not supposed to have 15 other use cases. It's not supposed to have another part-time job outside of that right now. It is in the store of value stage. It is supposed to serve as the world's most incredible savings technology. Now, I know I'm speaking from a privileged point of view, speaking from the West. And I know that many people might say, well, Oliver, what about the people who can't store their living day to day? They need more of a payments network. I get that. I'm not really talking about that segment of the world right now. And even that segment of the world will automatically start to use Bitcoin as a savings, even if it's for a little bit, when they see the fact that it's programmed to go up and raise the value of what you store in it over time. And so even the poorest of poor that will use it primarily as a payments network or a payments technology, over time, when they just see over and over and over again that this thing is programmatically rising in value, they'll leave a little bit in. They might need 98%, but they'll leave 2% in. It'll just naturally occur that this thing doesn't need to be gotten rid of in its entirety every single time I receive it, that I should leave at least some of it in. It's the fact that we don't save today because it doesn't pay to save today. We don't have something that increases in value. We have something that melts like a freaking ice cube. And when your money is weak and declines over time, you are conditioned to get rid of it. Even at the subconscious level, you don't want to hold what goes down over time. Even if you don't intellectually understand it, somehow intrinsically, we are, as the human species is tied to the concept of value and scarcity. It is innate in our DNA for whatever reason. It's one of the things that actually separates us from all the other living species, that we innately can detect value and scarcity. It's not the only thing that separates us, but it's one of the most important things that separates us from every other living species on the planet Earth. I don't know about other planets. I have yet to do intergalactic travel. Elon Musk, get to it. Jeff Bezos, get to it. But until I do intergalactic travel, I can only speak about what I know is here on this green planet Earth. And what I know here is that we're the only species that have this innate thing in our DNA that recognizes value and scarcity. I forget what that law is called, but if you were to put something of value down in front of a baby who hasn't yet quite learned to walk, they're crawling. You put something of value down, let's say like a gold coin, and then you put something like a $100 bill next to it. Guess which one the crawling baby naturally goes to? Not just because it's gold. Oh no, because you could paint the piece of paper gold too and make them both the same color. And something innate in that child will gravitate that child to the gold coin. There's something intrinsically embedded in the soul of that child that can recognize value and scarcity. This is one of the traits that separates us from everything else. Sometimes it doesn't happen right away. And there are a lot of people lost in this altcoin game, a lot of people lost in this shitcoin game because they have not yet released that intrinsic thing inside of them that recognizes value. They're being duped. They're being tricked. They're being tricked by a bunch of unfinished projects, none of which have realized anything that they promised. They're They're being tricked by VC funded pump and dump schemes that are trying to be money without going through all four phases of the money. And a lot of people don't even know what those four phases are. As I begin to really talk to you about the four phases, first you become a collectible. First, you have to be a collectible. It has to be a trite little thing that is collected by a small group of people. That group of people grows and grows and grows until it naturally starts to morph into a store of value. That's phase two. After, you need the store of value phase to be long and deep. You can't have a short store of value phase. Bitcoin needs to serve its number one function right now as a store of value for a very long time, maybe beyond our lifetimes. It has to stay at the store of value. That's how its base grows wide and strong and deep. And when enough people throughout the world store their future into this thing, when it has penetrated the human race in a very deep way at the store of value level, it naturally starts to morph into a medium of exchange. It doesn't have to be decided when it's going to be a medium of exchange. It will naturally transform itself into a medium of exchange because I will begin to demand, if you want something from me, I'm not going to demand it in the poor US dollar anymore or the Argentinian peso. Are you kidding me? I'm going to demand, if you want what I have to offer, you better give it to me and you better pay me in Bitcoin. Then all of a sudden that starts to happen. That the things that you need from someone, that someone will refuse to receive the weak anymore, and they will only receive the strong. And first that starts with one person. Then it starts with an Oliver Velez. Then it starts with you. And then it starts with someone else. And then it starts with someone else. And all of a sudden, now the medium of exchange part of a money's life cycle kicks into place when people no longer will accept your dirty cash for what you need. And then the medium of exchange phase has to last for a while. And as you get deeper and deeper and deeper into the medium of exchange, where people are just exchanging Bitcoin for other value, because the people that have the thing of value will not accept anything but Bitcoin, and you won't accept anything but Bitcoin, it is purely and very securely entrenched in medium of exchange stage. Then all of a sudden, unit of account, its final stage in all of its glory, naturally, effortlessly, and very smoothly comes into being, because we will start to price everything not in dirty cash anymore, but in Bitcoin. How many Satoshis is that? You kidding me? Dude, you got to come down on that number. I'm not paying that. I'm not paying that many. I'm not giving up that many Satoshis for that. You come down or I'm out. We start to price everything in Satoshis. Now, I'm not saying that there are not some people right now that are pricing things in Satoshis. Yes, I'm not saying that there are not people right now that are using Bitcoin as a medium of exchange. Of course they are. These things are not absolute. It's not like one day it's a store of value and Sunday night at 12 midnight, it immediately Monday morning becomes a medium of exchange. No, these things blends. So you've got your early people that are using it as sort of like there are early settlers that moved out west in the United States. Yes, of course. You've got your early people that cross those lines and are all the way at unit of account, where they only see the price of everything in Satoshis, or they only trade in Bitcoin. I get it, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about it being ubiquitous. I'm talking about deep penetration, like the internet is deeply entrenched in every part of our lives now. And I will say this as the last point of my talk here today. I will say this. that I believe with all my heart and all my soul that money is only Bitcoin's first use case. Being that store, being that vault where you can securely put your whole family's future generationally in and know that no one, no human being on earth can ever get their dirty hands on it. I believe that's its first use case. And I believe that Bitcoin has so many use cases that are so far beyond what we can possibly imagine today. I lived through this. Most of you lived through this same thing. I remember when the internet used to be just for chatting and sending files back and forth to each other. I remember where there was no use case outside of that. Okay, it was cool. That was when it was in its collectible stage, right? Oh, cool. I can chat with someone. Oh, I can send them this and they can send me that. And we at the time could not imagine today the use cases that the internet has. Their use cases for the internet are still being discovered today and will forever be discovered for the rest of your lives, for the rest of your children's lives, for the rest of their grandchildren's lives, and on and on and on. The internet is still in its infancy. It's 55 years old and it's infant. Imagine Bitcoin at 14 years old. And I believe that Bitcoin has taken on the biggest use case of all first, money. Everything else was dematerialized before Bitcoin came onto the scene. Everything from our music has been dematerialized. You don't touch an album anymore today. Our movies, you don't hold a VHS in your hand anymore today. It's been dematerialized, right? Your photos, you don't walk around with 12 different albums under your coffee table to bore your neighbors with when they come over for dinner. You don't do that anymore. You whip out your iPhone and you scan you bore them with thousands. You used to bore your neighbors with 15 or 20 different pictures in an album under the coffee table. Today, you bore them even more with thousands in your iPhone. Pictures, your memories have been dematerialized. Your music has been dematerialized. Your movies have been dematerialized. Everything on earth primarily has been dematerialized. Only one thing escaped this grand movement of dematerialization. One thing through manipulation, one thing through conniving was not allowed to be dematerialized until Bitcoin came on the scene, and that is money. And that's the biggest thing of all. Money is bigger than music. Money is bigger than the internet dematerialized books, dematerialized information, dematerialized movies, dematerialized music, dematerialized your mail, dematerialized everything in your life, but it couldn't dematerialize money until Bitcoin came onto the scene. And now Bitcoin is dematerializing money in the form and in all of its values, in all of its forms. And this is the biggest thing of all because money is the biggest thing in the world. Money is the biggest thing to be dematerialized. And so in a way, Bitcoin is not so much new as it is a continuation of this grand spirit of dematerialization, this grand movement that is rolling through the ages, and the manifestations of new things come from this one grand rolling movement. The last manifestation of this movement was the internet. The newest manifestation of this grand dematerialization is Bitcoin. But this movement has been going throughout the history of the human race. It's one spirit, one movement, and out pops different manifestations of that one giant multi-generational movement. All we've done is watched everything be dematerialized from our gods. The vast majority of the world used to worship stone gods and physical things as gods. Now most of the world have a dematerialized God. All right. Our energy used to be more physical. Now it's been dematerialized. Everything moves toward dematerialization. We used to think that the smallest unit of life was a human being or an animal, until we started to see there's an atomic life that we can't see, that's even smaller than the living things that walk around and crawl around. And then when we discovered that there's this less material level called atoms, we then discovered that there's even a less material level called subatomic life. And then the subatomic particles, electrons, protons, neutrons. And then when we discovered electrons, protons, neutrons, we discovered that there's even breakdown, especially of your electrons, into bosons and ozons, and so forth and so on, the names of which I've long forgotten. And so there's always this movement to the gross to the more refined, to the nothing. That's the movement of life, from gross, hard, and physical, to soft, less hard and physical, to absolutely dematerialized, where you can't see it, feel it, touch it, smell it, or taste it. And that's what Bitcoin's come to continue to do, but for the biggest thing in our lives, value. I use the word money and value interchangeably. And when you see Bitcoin for this, you see how magnificent it is, how grand it is, how much more than another tech is. And you see how silly these shitcoiners are. Oh, well, this one's faster. That's so stupid. This one processes payments faster. That solves absolutely nothing. And not only is that wrong, because the Bitcoin Lightning Network is the fastest network on the planet, but not only is that wrong, it's stupid, because that's not what's needed right now. Where do I store my future is what's needed now. That has been where the greatest crimes to humanity has been committed. Stealing my future, stealing my time, stealing the fruits of my labor, stealing what I have slaved for and worked for, debasing it, making it less, so that I have to go back up there on that hamster wheel and run faster this year than I ran fast last year for the same damn things. I got to work more hours this year than I worked last year for the same damn things. And the next year, I got to work double the hours I worked last year for the same damn things. And the same damn things become less and less quality. So not only am I losing time, which is the stuff life is made up of, I'm losing value, because the things I'm slaving for get poorer and poorer in quality. I say drop that nonsense. We have an escape today. That escape is Bitcoin, and that is why I call Bitcoin freedom. All right, traders. I get fired up about these things. I hope you don't mind. Guys, there's just one point here I see. One question here. Mike is saying, I'm very proud that I've got my two boys to get some, and yesterday helped set up their vaults with passphrase. Nice! Start them young, Mike. Start them young. Yes. The excitement to see the transfer broadcast from Swan, see the block get mined and show up in the treasure vault was something to see. It's truly magical. And Mike, I will tell you this, it's akin to the experiment, the metaphorical experiment I explained earlier, where if you put a gold coin in front of a child and a gold piece of paper, they will naturally, intrinsically see something magical or more special in the gold piece. And it's the same when you take a child and you transfer Bitcoin, you make them on their iPhone or something like that, download the Moon Wallet or something like that. And from your phone, you transfer Bitcoin and then you have them transfer it back. They will never be the same. Do you understand? They're growing up in this technologically driven world, right? To them, that's magic. It is magic. To be able to transfer, and the fact, and when you explain to them the fact that no one can ever stop you from doing this, ever. No one can ever take this from you. You need to be responsible and make sure no one ever knows these words unless it's someone you really, really care for. You don't mind if they take it. But this requires some level of responsibility. Being independent requires responsibility. Being free requires responsibility. Do you know that during American slavery times that the vast majority of slaves resisted freedom? They did not want freedom. It was only the few. It was only the rare. It was only the bold, the minority that preached freedom. The vast majority were content. They didn't want the personal responsibility of going out there, finding a way to survive, being independent. Massa gives us everything here. Massa gives us everything. Why do I want to be free? So yes, freedom requires some responsibility on our part. Freedom requires that we step up our game. I get it. But that's the exchange we have to make. And so when we teach our children that no one can stop what you just did, that no one can take what you put here, and that it is programmatically designed to go up in value, and that when it doesn't go up in value, that's an opportunity. That's not a fault. That's a feature. That's this special, incredible species giving you a blessing, another opportunity to get it more. And these opportunities over time will disappear. So when you teach them to take advantage of those, to not look at down from a US dollar perspective as being bad, but being a blessing, being an opportunity. Bitcoin is benevolent because if it weren't benevolent, it would just go straight up without backing up. Imagine trying to catch a train that is taking you to freedom. You are in slavery and you need to make this train. And the train, right before you get it, closes its doors and leaves you there on the platform in chains. You didn't make it. You sit there dejected, depressed. You made this long journey to be free. And the only way to be free was to make that train. And the train, you missed it. It left you. But then all of a sudden, as you're sitting there on a platform, you're crying, the train comes back and opens its doors. And you're like, what? You wipe your tears. You see the train back. It's got the big giant words on it, freedom. The doors open up and you say, I don't think I'm going to get on right now. I'm going to wait. That's what the majority of you are doing when Bitcoin backs up on you. When it goes to 69 and comes back to 15 and opens its doors again, you deny it. You disrespect it. And this needs to be understood by our children, that you don't disrespect when freedom comes back for you. When freedom comes back to give you another opportunity to jump on board in a better way. When Bitcoin dropped from 69 to 15,000, I will tell you that my traders will tell you, and those Bitcoiners who follow me will tell you, man, I was happy as a freaking pig in mud. I was happier than a pig in mud because I got an opportunity to do more of what I wish I did more of before. I was there when Bitcoin moved from 10,000 through 15,000 to 20,000, but I didn't do enough. I didn't do enough because I didn't know enough about what I had. Now I do, and the train comes back to 15,000, and I'm not going to get on it? Are you crazy? Are you kidding me? That's not me. That's not me. That might be you. That's not me. I'm jumping on board. I have a deeper understanding of what this is. And so these pullbacks that you call crashes that make you skeptical, they make me bolder. We are not the same. All right. I hope I'm not butchering your name. Hair Har. Uh, I wish we'll meet you someday and show that I learned from you the 20 and 2MA works like charm. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. Because I guess one of the people who are have become familiarized with some of my trading tactics. I appreciate that, Harun. Hare Har. I hope I'm not butchering your name, but thank you. Why do you have 13% Bitcoin in your name? It has been said, and I'm not going to, at this particular point, call out the person who popularized this. So I don't want to do that. But it has been said by someone that's really popular and big in the space that out of all the Bitcoiners that exist, only 13% are maxis or maximalists. Only 13% believe that Bitcoin is the only thing and nothing else. Only 13% don't buy into the concept that there are other technologies in the space to believe in. Well, I'm here to announce to the entire world as loudly as I possibly can, I am the 13%. Oh, yes, I am one of those 13%ers. I'm a 13%er through and through. I am pure blooded because there is no Fire 2.0. There is no there's no second internet. There is no alternative electricity. There's no second air, there's no second water, and there's no second Bitcoin. You get one chance to discover fire. No one except Christopher Columbus can discover something twice. It's only happened once in history. Christopher Columbus, all right? Discovered America? No, he didn't. But, you know, that's what we have in the history books, right? That's the only time in the history of the world that a discovery's been made twice. So barring Christopher Columbus discovering America, there cannot. Once digital scarcity is discovered, you can't discover it again. You can't make it again. You can't improve on fire. Yes, you can use fire. Do you understand? You can use fire for an increasing number of use cases, but you can't improve on the discovery itself. And every altcoin, every shitcoin is designed to attempt to improve on the discovery, which you can't do. And that's why all of them, listen to me carefully. You want to understand what 13, do you really want to understand what 13% really means? I'm going to explain it now. A 13%er truly knows that every single altcoin goes to zero. There's not one that is going to be spared, not a single one. That's what 13%er means in essence. Zero. They all are zero. I look at every single one and I see a big fat zero. I don't care what the propped up price is saying to me. I don't care what the phony valuation that's in the market today. They're all gone. They're all zero. When I lived through the internet.com bubble, there were tens of thousands of .coms in existence at that particular time. Tens of thousands. In fact, every company that didn't have a .com in their name, they went through a legal process of changing their name to a .com, and their stocks ran up dramatically. A dude has a pizza shop and he called it pizzashop.com and his valuation tripled overnight. I lived through this nonsense. And when the crash came, when the final end came, guess how many survived out of all of them? Out of tens of thousands, three. Three of them. Out of tens of thousands, three survived. What was it? Yahoo, Amazon, and something else. Someone said, well, Oliver, what about Google? Google came after that. And so some of you might be saying, well, Oliver, then that means that at the end of this, according to your theory, there's going to be maybe 2 or 3 that survive. No, because that was different. That wasn't an attempt to improve a discovery, which is dumb. That wasn't an attempt to improve on a discovery. You can't improve on a discovery, guys, which means that you can't discover something twice. All of these altcoins are an attempt to discover something twice. You can't do it. It's doomed to failure. And so none of them will survive. It might take time. It's not going to take time for the majority of them. It might take time for a few of them. But mark my words, you heard it here first. I promise you, if you price anything else that you are interested in because you think it has some freaking use case, a promise pulled out of somebody's, you know what, little tushy, if you feel that it has value, measure it, price it in Bitcoin and watch. Just price it in Bitcoin and watch. Over time, you'll see it trend towards zero forever. Forever and ever and ever. You're wasting your time. And that is the thing we don't have a lot of, because Bitcoin's going to outprice you. Bitcoin has already outpriced most of the world. Guys, do you realize how many millionaires can buy a bunch of Bitcoin today? I want you to think about this before I go. Bitcoin is already starting to price out at 30,000. Bitcoin is pricing out millionaires. Think about the vast majority of millionaires who are they're worth 4 million, 2 million, 5 million, 6 million, but their millions are in a company that supports them. So their cash flow is like you and me. They might have some cash flow. Okay, they might have some cash flow. They're worth on paper 6 million, but that 6 million is 4.5 million is the business. Then they've got another parts in the equity in their home that they live in. Maybe they have a little vacation home and have another little piece of equity there. And then the rest is a small little checking account, savings account, or some stocks. That's not enough to be buying tens of Bitcoin. It's already at 30,000, outpricing millionaires. The next level, it's going to outprice people that are worth 100,000. Then it's going to outprice people that are worth 10,000. Then it's going to outprice people that are worth 1,000. Do you understand? We don't have freaking time. Stop playing around with this nonsense. I'm telling you. And gobble up. My feeling, I can't give you financial advice, but if I were sitting down with you like a friend, which is exactly what I'm doing right now, I would tell you to get your hands on as much as possible. I'm not telling you to put your whole life into it where you can't pay your rent or you can't buy milk and eggs tomorrow. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the vault for the things or the amount you don't need tomorrow. That's what I'm talking about. And stop playing around and getting tricked by a bunch of VCs. I've lived throughout this industry for 37 years professionally. I know a pump and dump scheme when I see it. And that's all these things are. Pump and dump schemes, dumping on the public. And the public is too dumb at this point to understand that they're being used as exit liquidity. All they're being used for is to be dumped on. And I don't want that to be you. Guys, I love you to death. Everybody's like kind of, Oliver, come on, let's go. I've got an appointment to make, but I just wanted to come on board here. I did press the record button this time. I got so bummed out that my last spaces did not get recorded, and it was a fire spaces. But this one I did remember to hit the record button. So if you want to listen to it again, I truly hope that you do. And if you miss part of it, go back, make sure you don't miss any of it. And it's hopefully here as long as possible, guys. Love you to death. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Remember, tomorrow, Monday, is Global Bitcoin Buy Day. I'm starting that movement. Join the army. Let's do our buys tomorrow. My name is Oliver Velez, and I am your 13%er Bitcoiner. Be safe out there, and until next time. Boom!